This next story is just absolutely devastating, and the part about it that's the craziest is the solutions are so simple. And I don't know if anybody except maybe Dr. Carl Hart is talking about the real solution. So take a look at this article on drug overdoses. Drug overdose deaths fueled by fentanyl hit record high in U.S. Wall Street Journal says the U.S. recorded its highest number of drug overdose deaths in a 12-month period, surpassing 100,000 for the first time in the shadow of the coronavirus pandemic, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. There were an estimated 100,306 drug deaths in the 12 months running through April, the latest CDC data show. This marks a nearly 29% rise from the deaths recorded in the same period a year earlier, indicating the U.S. is heading for another full-year record after drug deaths soared during the COVID-19 pandemic. Quote, "It's telling us that 2021 looks like it will be worse than 2020, said Robert Anderson, chief of the Mortality Statistics Branch at the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics. Opioid-related deaths, mainly fueled by bootleg versions of the potent drug fentanyl, accounted for about 3/4 of the deaths through April, according to the CDC, which counts provisional drug deaths in year-long blocks. These records take months to compile because drug overdoses typically require local death investigations and toxicology tests." Okay. 100,000 drug overdose deaths in a year. Now, a lot of people, I wouldn't blame you if you describe this as, well, I mean, it's the opioid crisis. That's why we're at this place that we're at. I wouldn't blame you, because that's the narrative that's been pumped into your head for years now. But the fact of the matter is, opioid pill use is actually down. In fact, it's down a lot. What's happening is, and look, well, I just had firsthand experience of this. Messed up my leg, had to go to the emergency room. They didn't offer me any pain pills. I definitely would have taken a Vicodin or a Percocet, or even if they had some stronger Tylenol or whatever. They didn't offer me anything. But they don't give out pain pills now for almost anything. And so what happens is, because there's been this overreaction and this overcorrection where, because, oh my God, the pain pill crisis, oh, it's so bad, it's so bad. All right, now let's crack down. And doctors are terrified of prescribing them now because, there was the national outrage and backlash to it. Well, what happens? Pill use goes down. Many people who are dealing with pain management problems, they end up having to go to the black market. Now, if you can't get opioid pills to blunt your pain, what's the closest thing to an opioid pill that you can get on the black market? Heroin. So you go to the black market, you get heroin. And what's going on? A lot of the heroin, since this stuff is illegal, the heroin is made on the black market by unscrupulous drug dealers and cartels. And a lot of it is cut with fentanyl, a drug that's so powerful. It's way more potent than heroin, way more potent than any of these opioid pills. It's used as an elephant tranquilizer. So if you have just a little bit of fentanyl in your dose of heroin, and a lot of this stuff is laced with that, you die. In fact, the speculation is that a lot of very well-known famous people who passed away, it's because of this. Michael K. Williams, it's probably because of fentanyl laced in heroin. Philip Seymour Hoffman, same thing. And don't take my word for it. Look at the facts from the CDC and the Wall Street Journal just laid it out. What was it? 2/3, 3/4 of the deaths are because of fentanyl? So opioid pill use is down, deaths are up. What's the takeaway from this, ladies and gentlemen? The war on drugs, the moral panic, it's been a colossal failure. It's been a legendary failure. The same thing happened with alcohol during Prohibition. When alcohol was illegal, it was made underground in bathtubs. And sometimes you'd get a bad batch and people would drink alcohol and die. So there were more of those overdose deaths then than there are now, and alcohol is legal now. Now understand something. Are you going to have some percentage of the population that has a problem? Of course, some percentage of the population are alcoholics. As Dr. Carl Hart says, it's the famous 80-20 rule. 20% of the people might struggle with some sort of addiction, some sort of crisis with it, but 80% of people can handle their stuff. The solution to this problem is to legalize, tax, and regulate drugs. Legalize, tax, and regulate. And under that umbrella of regulation, you can take away the most potent, the most harmful versions of the drugs, which aren't even really drugs. When it's that potent, it's more of a poison. It's more of a poison than a drug. So, look, you're not going to be able to go to your local CVS and buy bath salts or fentanyl, but should you be able to go get some codeine? Well, fuck yeah, you should. And again, the opioid pill crisis was the problem. Of course that was a big problem. But the opioid pill use is down and deaths are up. So what are we really doing here? What are we doing here? This story breaks my heart, man, because so many of these deaths are completely and utterly preventable. They are. Now, the other part of the conversation is, well, what led to now being the worst problem? Fentanyl is the key culprit, of course, but some people point to, well, it's because of the lockdowns from the pandemic. The evidence really doesn't bear that out, because there are countries that had way stricter lockdowns than we had, and they don't have this skyrocketing death count from drug overdoses. So you could argue that, of course, the whatever minimal lockdowns we had in the U.S. compared to other countries, that definitely hurt people's mental health. I think that's clear, because we're social creatures and we need that interaction. So there's plenty to criticize there, but I wouldn't necessarily link it to this. I mean, you could also say just COVID in general has led to people's declining mental health, because when there's a global pandemic and a worldwide pandemic, you spend a lot of your time worrying about your loved ones and your family and your friends, and oh my God, is everybody okay? Am I going to be okay? Oh my God, I have a sore throat. Am I going to die? So it's an amalgamation of factors is what it is. And of course, you could say anxiety, depression, all these things kicked up because a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people struggling to get by. I mean, they were struggling before, but they're struggling even more now. So, is a colossal problem, and it needs to be addressed. And by the way, go try to find somebody in mainstream media or any mainstream politician. Even Bernie won't say what I just said. That, hey, the problem wasn't really the opioid pills. We cut back on the opioid pills and more people are dying. Because this is what you get with a hardline approach. Ban it, which pushes it underground, which makes it more dangerous, which leads to more deaths. But I hope everybody feels good at the end of the day, because we were tough on drugs. We took no nonsense. Well, your no nonsense led to a lot of corpses now, didn't it? Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.